thank you, thank you. To let go of the shore. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rhonda Hull, and I got a call from Pam saying that she was ill, and would I be willing to give the message today? So before I step into that, I want to seed you with a few questions. Knowing that we're all called to let go of the shore, I want you to listen to these questions not through your ears and mind, but through your heart, and like it's a marinade. Just let the questions land for you without a feeling like you have to solve it or find a solution or worry about it. Just drink them in. What is it that you really want? And who are you wanting that? You are the I am, and the I am is embodied within you. Wondering what you want to live a heart-centered, happy, joyful life is not a question. Today we're not asking the question about the things in life, the clothes, the house, the cash, all of that. We're asking, what is our priority so that we know where to point the boat? And can we respond rather than react to whatever that calling of our I am is? So yesterday, I happened to be on a boat. I was on a ferry after waiting a very long line to catch the Edmonds ferry back after a day prior to that of going to doctor's appointments and traffic and busyness. And I got a call from Pam while I was on the ferry asking if she was expressing that she was sick. She was waiting for her COVID test, which happened to come back negative. She found out that this morning. So when she was asking, like, tomorrow, can you speak for me? And I said, in my mind, what the conversation that went on was, holy fill in the blank, I have so much to do on my to-do list, and I don't have time to prepare, and it's not going to be good enough, and all of those thoughts that we all have went through. And then in that split second, while she's being courageous enough to ask, because we don't find it easy to ask, what was going through for me was an awareness in that split moment of remembering what it is I do for a living. So since my near-death experience when I was 17, and now as a holistic and intuitive life, death, and transition coach, I have an awareness that I am being called to be a bridge person for those who are going to die someday, which the last time I checked kind of includes all of us. So whether it's going to be 10 seconds from now or when we're 110, from the moment we're born, we are on that journey. Yes. We are on that journey. And I must have been Italian in a past life since I have to talk with my hands. And so I hold the space for people who are going through challenging times, up to and including their death. So here's Pam saying, I have a challenging time. And so my question for myself was, given that I'm curious and courageous in some ways to be that bridge person, am I willing to live life fully while I still am breathing? and respond to that call that Pam gave. So in the past, my decision-making process would be to a request like Pam's would have been to be in that fear place and applying logic, and then often driven by fear and fatigue when there was that call to step outside of my comfort zone. Well, then in that split moment that I was making the decision, I recalled a time where my almost 17-year-old grandnephew, when he was barely 2, had leukemia. And this community held me through that journey with him. And so we were walking past the Space Needle one day, and my niece with Connor and his little bald head said, "Do you want to go into the Space Needle? There aren't very many people." Connor wasn't to be in enclosed, lots of people places. But she said, "Do you want to go to the top of the Space Needle?" And in that logical linear place, I was saying $16.50 times 3 time. I don't know if we can go to the top of the Space Needle, which now is more expensive. And I highly recommend it because now you can see all the way down to the bottom through the glass floor. But in that moment, my niece took my arms, she took my shoulders, and the kids call me Bobo. She said, "Bobo, look at Connor." And he's like right there hugging her leg. She said, "He may be dead tomorrow. Now, do you want to go to the top of the Space Needle?" So in that moment and for the rest of my life, it helped to integrate, where does my response come from? Does it come from a place of fear? Is it from that practical thing where we all have to maneuver this crazy paradox called life? Or is it from a fear place of, I can't afford it, I don't have the time? How can we assess those times that we're being called to show up and it's ours to do, and where our response comes from? So I have made that decision in my life to always reflect and make my decisions based upon one primary priority criteria. I ask myself, on my deathbed, which will I rather I had done? So in that moment with Connor, it was to go to the top of the Space Needle. In the moment I was sitting on the ferry listening to Pam in her gravelly voice say, "Can you show up for me tomorrow?" Yeah, it'll work somehow, because this is a beloved community that even if I fail miserably, I will have seized an opportunity to learn and stretch my comfort zone in the presence of people that I love and I believe love me. So, it's not always easy to make the choice, but I have found far greater value in risking to say yes with the possibility of failing miserably, and saying yes to my to-be list rather than navigating my boat according to my to-do list. Now, that doesn't mean that you ignore those responsibilities. I'm not saying that. But even those responsibilities can be done and lived through your to-be list. So if you know who your I am is, and you know who you are called to be, then it makes it a little bit easier to filter through and know in that split second where all of that happens so quickly with those neural pathways, when you're supposed to say yes. So as my head was saying, "No way, Pam, I can't," what came out of my mouth was, "Sure, we'll figure it out." My near-death experience demonstrated for me, without question, that death is not something to be feared. It's an inevitability that we ignore pretty much from the moment we're born through the end. But it's not something here to be feared. Instead, it's that navigational point that helps us course correct and taps us on the shoulder and says that death is the valuable reminder in this crazy human experience full of paradox that reminds us to live this moment fully. So, given that I'm in that world of life, death, transition, and dying, to me, death is just the reminder to live fully, sometimes a painful one. But a woman named Bronnie Ware, who is a former palliative care nurse, wrote a valuable book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And in it, she captured the regrets, the key regrets that surfaced over all of the time that she worked in palliative care with her dying patients. So number one regret is I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself and not to the life others expected of me. So as you're marinating your own I am and who am I in this paradox, ask that question of yourself. Number two, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Now, hard work is good for the soul, but hard work unconsciously really sucks. There's a way that we can work hard without abandoning our relationships and abandoning joy, letting not just our ego mind lead, but letting spirit lead and trusting. Number three, I wish I had had the courage to express my feelings, all of them. We run our feelings through that egotistical mind thing, and what winds up is like holding a beach ball under the water. We hold it and hold it and hold it till it contaminates our health and well-being. So do we have the courage to express? Those dying people were concerned that they hadn't done that. Number four is I wish that I had stayed in touch with my friends. So many of them felt like they hadn't said the things they wanted to say and that they had missed out on opportunities to be with the people that they loved. Number five, I wish I had allowed myself to be happier. Now think of it. Allowed myself to be happier. That was the way that they expressed it. Because Viktor Frankl, who lived in the concentration camps, he's one of our many everyday prophets who said, look, if you can focus on this little flower that comes up through the crack in the sidewalk, even amidst that three-dimensional look at how difficult this paradox is, then you're choosing happiness. What you focus on, you create more of. And he could predict those people that would not only survive but thrive after all of the horrors they had experienced, because they had chosen that nobody can take that choice from you. They chose happiness. So if death is a part of life that is here to persistently remind us to live more fully, what are we waiting for? Here and now, it becomes that reminder. So as we turn our faces to a new week ahead, never knowing if it will be our last, and if we welcome the regrets of Bronnie Ware's dying patients and the many just like them, and the people within this community and beyond our community and today who are transitioning or have transitioned, it's their gift of being the reminder for us to live now fully. And if we see it as a gift, even though we regret the loss, we'll miss them and miss their presence in this form, we can honor them most by embodying our knowing that here and now is the most important moment there is. It is the only moment there is, and choosing joy in that moment is our way of honoring the gift that they have given us. So I am so grateful that I have, in my personal and my professional experience, I used to be a labor coach doula at births. And then with my near-death experience, and now my experience working with people who are questioning and preparing for their end days, I know that when this little baby comes into this life, there's a cheering section on the other side saying, you go, you're courageous going into that paradox. We're holding the space for you on that side. They come down this tunnel into this kind of murky reality for a while, and then we stand on this side of the veil at the other end, painfully sometimes, and sometimes even joyfully, knowing they're returning to spirit. They're returning to that pure love consciousness. So within that reality, we celebrate their transition at either end, the coming in and the leave taking, which only is an illusion because it's all here, right now. So I want to reframe those 5 questions. I want to ask you to ask yourself as you're in that marinade of who am I and what am I called to do and how can I live a heart-centered life? Number 1, what courageous ways, whether in big or small steps, can you show up more authentically today? Daring to follow your heart far beyond this meeting time, but into your daily practice, rather than playing it safe by only living up to the expectations of others. Number 2, how can you be more gentle with yourself and listen within for what you're being called to respond to, and focus more on your to-be list rather than your to-do list? And do your to-do list, bringing into it and through it your to-be list. Number 3, how can you dare to let love lead, genuinely sharing your feelings and expressing love with greater abandon? So when we can't hug in person, we've learned to hug with elbow bumps. We've learned to hug with Zoom. Be determined to find the ways to express now your love for other people. Because truly, we don't know if we will be here tomorrow or if they will be here tomorrow. And we keep trying to control it all and hang on to our comfort zone while we're sitting on this hurling ball of gas flowing through the universe, which is total uncertainty. That's how the universe creates, is through chaos. Number 4, what actions can you take to build and deepen meaningful relationships, even if it takes you out of your comfort zone? So who is that person that you're curious about? Who is that person who's struggling to open a door and you can go and open the door for them? Number 5, how can you shift your focus from the all too many complaints and worries and what ifs and sensationalized concerns because of what the media does for us to what matters most? I want to read something very quickly that came across my computer this morning. It says, sometimes I just want to stop. Talk of COVID, protests, looting, brutality. I lose my way. Become convinced that this new normal is real life. But then I meet an 87-year-old who talks of living through polio, diphtheria, Vietnam protests, and yet is still enchanted with life. He seems surprised when I said that 2020 must be especially challenging for him. No, he said slowly, looking at me straight in the eyes, just like my niece looked at me that day. I learned a long time ago to see the world through to not see the world through the printed headlines. I see the world through the people that surround me. I see the world with the realization that we love big. Therefore, I just choose to write my own headlines. Husband loves wife today. Family drops everything to come to grandma's side. He patted my hand, and the old man made a new friend. So, my final question for you today is, when you leave here today, will you die until you die? Or will you choose moment by moment, mistakes and all, steps forward and backwards? Prophet Yoda says there is no such thing as try, so every little intention counts. Will you die until you die? Or will you join with me on this crazy adventure as consciously as we can to live fully present until we die? And remember that messy or not, love is always the answer, regardless of the question. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Claire.